an individual that has an employment-based green card that's sponsored by an employer is looking to wait roughly 3,800 to 4,000 days. And I think that that's what lends itself to the H-1B fatigue on the individual side. On the employer side, you have this constant churn of extensions and amendments and, a variety of fees associated, both legal and government, right? Filing associated with continuing employment as it relates to an H-1B visa. And we did some calculations. We were talking about some break evens in terms of, how long does an individual have to stay on an H-1B here in the US? What does that look like, in terms of if we were looking at relocating that job to Canada? So that leads me into your lines of business.
Yeah, I'll give a quick overview. So Syndesus is a company. We build engineering teams in Canada for tech companies in the US. So you'd say if you're looking at the services, you're like, oh, you do recruiting. Oh, and then also you remotely employ people in Canada. And then lastly, very pertinent to this discussion, you can sponsor their Canadian work visas. As you said, the ideal scenario, I wouldn't call that an ideal scenario. I would call that very unideal for them. But that's the scenario where we can help. There's two different parties here. There's the immigrant tech worker in the US. In this case, they have expiring OPT, last try. They are looking at a date where they have to leave the US. So OPT is expired. There's no more chances. The US company is looking, unfortunately, to terminate them when they leave the US because they're going to be when they're going back home, they're too far away. And that worker is usually out of options in the US. And that work has to be open to the idea of a permanent move to Canada. So a few of those things line up, let's say on the worker side. For the company, they're looking at this person as someone who's a critical part of their team, someone who knows their company, is respected internally, and they don't want to lose them. So usually I'm having a conversation with someone from HR from a tech company in the US, and they're explaining how critical this person is, and also that they want to find a way to make this work. So all those things have to be lined up. It's the worker with an open mind to moving to Canada permanently who has no more options in the US. But in this case, the worker's not paying any fees for Syndesus services. It is their US employer who is going to first pay for a Canadian immigration lawyer to help them cross the border, next pay for Syndesus fees to sponsor that work visa in Canada, and then long-term, the U.S. employer will be working with Syndesus because we're an employer of record or a PEO, which is a professional employer organization. We have the ability to legally employ this worker long-term in Canada. So there's also a commitment from the company. It's both financial and looking at this person saying, we want to keep them. How can we keep them? And Syndesus offers a solution for that.